Alrighty, happy Halloween. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Tech Tuesday about creating scientific posters in BioRender. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Today we have Annalie and Laura from BioRender who are going to be teaching us about everything about BioRender, how to create the scientific posters, how to access it, and go through, your questions that you might have during the session. So just so everybody knows, we are expecting quite a few people to log in today. So we do have your microphones on mute, but if at any point during the session you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat, and Laura and Annalie will be going through them as the session progresses. We're also recording today's session, so if there's any part you missed or need to go over again or even share with some colleagues in your department, we'll be sending you a follow-up email with a link to the recording, as well as any other helpful links or guides that we mentioned today. I also want to bring up, while they're demonstrating how to create scientific posters in BioRender, please note that we have our branding guidelines available at brand.weil.cornell.edu. That's going to have a list of all the colors that we use that you can transfer over into BioRender, as well as the logos and the guidelines that you should be mindful of when you're creating your scientific posters. I'll be sure to upload that information into the email that I send out to you with the brand guidelines that were provided by our branding team. And if you have any questions, where to reach out to for branding guidance. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Annalie. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Vanessa, for the intro, and thank you everybody for having us today. We're really excited to get to join you on your Tech Tuesday and get to talk about scientific posters in BioRender. So I am going to turn my camera off just so that you have a clean recording to work with, and then we can go ahead and kick off our session. So just to address a couple of logistical things and to kind of echo what Vanessa said earlier. So we have a chat for this session, and please feel free to enter questions in the chat at any time as I go. Don't feel like you need to save your questions until the end. I'm super happy to answer questions at any time throughout the session. And also, if you have questions related to what I'm talking about or not what I'm talking about, we are happy to answer any questions that you have. So feel free to enter those in the chat at any time. So just to give you a very brief intro to myself, my name is Annalie. My background includes a bachelor's in integrative physiology with a master's in neurophysiology of human movement from the University of Colorado Boulder. Today, I'm a science communication associate at BioRender, so my goal is to help other scientists and researchers like many of you to communicate their own research using our intuitive software platform. Today, I'll be covering 3 brief design tips for improving your scientific posters, and then we'll get to dive into the poster builder feature in BioRender to give you the tools to build your scientific posters right here within our platform. So just to dive in, this is an image that might feel familiar to you if you have attended a conference or a symposium, or perhaps it may become more familiar to you soon. But as researchers, you might recognize this big conference room with hundreds of posters. And when we're talking about designing a scientific poster, it's typically going to be for a conference or for an event like this one shown here. And one of the critical pieces that go into poster design and presentation is ensuring that the scientific content presented on our posters is concise and easily understandable to your audience. You want to spend time connecting with a variety of different scientists and colleagues. And the purpose of a poster is to convey your research to an audience in an efficient and concise way. So just a very quick question I wanted to throw out to you all. What is the longest amount of time that you may want to spend talking with someone about your scientific poster? You can throw it in the chat in terms of minutes if you have experience with this or any thoughts about like how much time you might want to spend talking to someone. I see 3 minutes in the chat. Yeah, 3 minutes, 15 minutes. 3 to 4, 5 max, 10, 5. These are awesome. Thanks for throwing those into the chat. So that's exactly kind of the range that I had in mind as well. So the most frequent answers that we see are anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. And we want that poster to convey information so efficiently that instead of spending that brief 5 to 10 minutes explaining all of the content that's on your poster with that person, you can instead use it to build connections with other scientists, answer their questions about your work, and hear any insights or perspectives that they might have to offer on your field of study. I love what's going on in the chat. I love ChatGPT. It's a fan favorite at BioRender as well. Um, but with that in mind, so we're going to go through 3 tips to consider when designing your scientific posters to most optimally and efficiently communicate your scientific research to your audience. We'll talk about creating a logical story flow with your research, maximizing the limited space on your poster with text and image formatting, and using color to give your poster a cohesive appearance, and emphasize the critical pieces that you want to be your audience's focus as they move through the information. And then following these tips, we'll also get to dive into the poster builder feature and give you a demo on how to use it, show you the functional applications as you're designing and building that poster. But the first tip that I want to walk through with all of you, and an essential piece of effective science communication, is creating that logical story flow on your posters. So when you're at a conference and a viewer comes to visit your poster, you want them to be able to easily navigate themselves through the research presented on your poster and clearly follow from start to finish that kind of scientific story that you're trying to tell. And it's natural for an individual's vision to follow a pattern that's from top to bottom and left to right informationally. So as they guide themselves through your poster, we want to ensure that the flow of information is going to follow that more natural flow of information. So starting logically with our intro information, this will typically be on the left-hand side of your poster if you're using a landscape layout like the one shown here. Typically, this is going to include your abstract, your introduction, maybe the methods as well, and that's going to flow from top to bottom to begin with that logical progression of information. And then if you were to use a portrait um, format of your poster, that kind of more like top to bottom layout, this will typically flow from left to right across that top section of your poster. So either way, still following that top to bottom or left to right layout. And then that midsection of your poster is typically going to include kind of the meat of your poster or the information that you most want to emphasize to your viewer. And that's almost always going to be your data-driven results section. We want that to be the largest section of your poster, and we want it to be made up of mostly visual components. So if you're including multiple different visualizations or data representations, we want those to flow both from top to bottom and from left to right in this sort of Z formation. So consider that when designing the layout of the data you're going to present and the order in which you want the viewer to be consuming this information, because the Z configuration is how your viewer will most logically move through that info. And then lastly, we use that right-hand section to include our main conclusions for the reader, any acknowledgements, references, funding agencies, or contact information will be included as that kind of last piece that they end on. And following this flow and progression of information on your poster will ensure that the viewer's navigation through your poster is the easiest and most natural to them, so they aren't spending additional time and effort trying to guide or make sense of the flow of information. Any questions so far about this logical story flow? Awesome. I don't see anything in the chat, but please feel free to enter at any time. I'll just keep us moving through these tips. And so The next is talking about using the power of text for the alignment and maximization of the space on your poster. So, as we all know and are familiar with, space on a poster is limited. And as we're designing each section, we need to take advantage of all of the available space while also creating a poster that feels approachable and not overwhelming to our viewers. And text can be an incredibly powerful tool for creating alignment and maximizing that space on your poster. So, oh, here's a great example of this. So you can see that the text here on the right-hand side corresponds to each individual contributor. And in between each, we have that padding or that white space, which creates a natural looking separation between our sections. And so instead of including a visible text box around each block of text, which can create distraction or that overcrowded feel, you can simply use text as a natural alignment feature. And this can be a very aesthetic alignment tactic on a scientific poster that's also going to save you quite a bit of space in those margins and padding. And you can do this on your posters by using the justify alignment type, which is going to align the text in even formatting to create those crisp, clean lines on either side of the box. And a quick note is that this doesn't work as well if you're using left, right, or center alignment types because it'll create a crisp line on one side, but not both sides. And so it doesn't create that clean box-like text formatting. So this will work best if you are using that justify alignment tactic. So another important piece to keep in mind when using text as an alignment tool to maximize our space is to avoid what we refer to as widows and orphans. So to define each of these features, a widow is a word that's hanging all by itself at the end of a paragraph of text. So that's what you're seeing on the left there. And even though it's connected to this full text box at the top, it creates kind of this dead space to the right of the word. And then an orphan is a word that's completely by itself on its own line or paragraph. And we mainly want to avoid these because it can be a pretty big waste of space, as you can see in each of these paragraphs. And it can also end up breaking up the content across your columns on your poster. And with that limited space you already have, you want to take full advantage of any and all space you have available. So it actually makes more sense to reframe the sizing of your text, maybe drop it down a notch or pop it up a notch in text size to avoid using those widow or orphan words as you're making your text design. And here's an example of what this can look like on the title of our poster. So at the top here, we can see a widow word in the title. And what you may have noticed is that this word immediately draws the eye's attention, and it can cause distraction for the viewer to first focus on that widow word, then go back and read the rest of the title altogether. And it also wastes a lot of space in that title block of your poster. So what we can do instead is take down the text size a notch or two to make the title continuous, and also bring up that title block to give us a little extra space for content in the poster as well. So as you're moving through the design of the text elements on your poster, these are just a few tips that you can keep in mind to maximize both the space and the alignment of your poster sections. And then the last tip that I want to discuss is the use of color and how we can use it to our advantage to create both emphasis and cohesiveness in our poster design. And these are design elements that can really help your poster to get noticed and to highlight key points that you want your reader to target. So you can see in these two poster examples how they have chosen consistent color palettes to create a cohesive feel in the overall appearance of the poster. We have this kind of maroon or magenta type palette here on the left, and this palette of different blue hues on the right. And choosing a consistent color palette not only looks more appealing and approachable, but it's also going to allow us to better create emphasis on key sections. The results section, as I mentioned at the beginning, is one that we typically want to place the most emphasis. And so by adhering to a consistent color theme, you can actually add a light background color to the results section to subtly highlight this section to the viewer, and then also give it a darker header to really draw their attention to that section as they view the poster. And if we were to use a variation of different colors, it would make it much more difficult to create an emphasis on a section using color. So by keeping a consistent color palette using hues of the same color, it can be a really effective method for visually drawing your viewers' attention to key features. And yes, I see one comment about using your institution's branded color palettes. And Vanessa, I think, provided a link to those branded colors at the top of the chat, and she'll be sending some follow-up details on those branding guidelines. And so if you have branded colors for your institution, what you can do is similar to what I've done here with like a group of maroon hues or a group of blue hues. You can actually use your institution's main colors and just use the branded colors to create that kind of overall theme for the poster. And so here's an example of this, maybe. So a great way to use color in your posters is to show association and consistency with those branded colors. So often the institution that you're a part of, like yours, will have specific logos and colors that need to be present on your poster. And so using your brand specific colors is actually a perfect way to set the theme and the palette for your poster. So this is an example that we used of a poster using branded colors for Columbia University Medical Center. So they use this dark blue to create this kind of cohesive, appealing, and non-overwhelming color scheme for their poster. You can definitely use lime green and magenta if you feel so inclined to do so. We're not going to stop you, but if you want to use the branded colors or some color hue themes, it's likely to get that extra notice by your viewers, but we definitely won't stop you from using those lime green and magenta colors. I say go for it. But now that we've gone through these poster design tips and have touched on creating a logical story flow, maximizing space and alignment using text, and the use of color to create emphasis and cohesiveness, I'm going to jump over to the poster builder on BioRender to show you how we can put these tips to work in our poster design. And so what I'm going to do first is just toggle to this other tab. So this is a poster that I've created in the BioRender poster builder. And this is just to give you an example of a fully completed poster using one of BioRender's pre-made poster templates. So I brought you into the poster builder tool so we can take a better look at it. We can see how this poster represents a lot of the tips that we talked about, like the logical and grid-like flow of information. We made sure not to have any major widows or orphans in the text to try to maximize that spacing. And then we've used color to create a cohesive theme and highlight our results section to make sure that it's emphasized to our viewers. And so now what I'm going to do is bring us to the BioRender gallery so we can start from scratch and create that poster all together and show you how easily and quickly you can design a professional looking scientific poster using our poster builder tool. And so if you're newer to BioRender, this is kind of your home page or your gallery that you'll see when you log in. And so what we're going to do is come up here to create new, come to poster builder. And once we launch the poster builder, this is going to give you the options to choose a template. And even once we choose a template, we'll have the ability to edit those within the software. And I have some admin capabilities in BioRender, so these are some university-specific templates here at the top. But what you'll see when you log into BioRender and launch the poster builder is these classic landscapes. So We've got classic landscape templates and then classic portrait templates, depending on the type of poster you want to create. In this case, I'm going to launch a landscape poster template. And I'm going to stick with this classic blue, or you can choose from a number of different colors. In this case, we could do the sunset orange since it's like relatively close to your branded colors, but as Vanessa mentioned, you do have those actual branding guidelines and colors. So this is just purely as an example. But now that we've launched the poster builder, let's go ahead and orient you to the poster builder in BioRender. So our poster is here in the middle, and then we've got a couple of important toolbars to work with. So if you've worked within the regular kind of BioRender Illustrator platform, you'll recognize this formatting and layout toolbar on the right. This allows us to zoom in, zoom out. We can add rulers as some spacing guidelines. So if you want to add very specific margin sizes, you can do that using these ruler guidelines that you set on your poster. If you want to at any time, you can simply right click on those and delete them, but they are great for working space if you're trying to create specific distance on any of those margins and padding. The other thing we have is a grid tool. This is also great for layout if you're trying to space out your different sections. So you can increase the grid sizing or decrease that grid sizing. And you can also toggle on and off of that at any time. And then we have the preview function, which I used to show you that completed poster sample. And then you also have the option to preview in grayscale. If by chance you're not printing your poster in color, which for the most part, I think people do for poster sessions, but also if you want to double check your contrasting colors in any of your figures or your text, previewing in grayscale is a great way to make sure you have enough contrast in your figures and your textual elements. So just a couple of simple formatting and layout functions to use as a handy tool. And then to get into the meat of the poster builder, we've got our poster settings here that will pop up on the left. So this is where you can fill your background color. So if you didn't want your background color to be white, you could set that to maybe be this light orange. You can set a very specific hex code, which is likely if you're going to match those branded colors. Otherwise, you can use the color picker to match a logo. So if we were to use the color picker here and I wanted my background color to all be this light orange, I could use that color picker to set that as a background color. In this case, I do want to follow some of those tips that we talked about and keep that background color white. So I'm going to go back and set that hex code to be white. And then you can always change the color theme at any time. It doesn't have to stay with what you pick originally with that template. In this case, I'll keep it orange, but and then I see a question in the chat. How can we set up poster size again? For example, poster size is 45 by 45. Awesome question. I was just about to do that. So that was super timely. But down here under size, you do have these dimension settings. So here we can, if I didn't want it to be like this rectangular layout and you did want that 45 by 45, I can set those dimensions here. And now we have a 45 by 45 poster. So you can set those dimensions here at any time. It doesn't have to be while you're or before you add content to the poster. It can be while you're adding content to the poster. So I'll show you that in a bit here. But you can change any of these settings even once you've added text and images to the poster. In this case, I'm going to keep it 48 by 36 to give us a more rectangular layout, but that's how you can set those dimensions. And then you can change between inches and centimeters if you prefer to work with centimeters. We also have some section and content margins that you can play around with. So you can increase those content margins if you're looking for a little bit more space and breathability, or you can edit those content margins to increase or decrease the space between sections as well. So a couple of things to play around with as you're setting these formats and structures for your poster. The other thing is increasing or decreasing that header height. So all of those settings can be set before you start working on your poster or after you've added the content. And the next piece of our toolbar at the top here is our insert content piece. So even after I've chosen this classic landscape, I can fully edit this template to match any branding guidelines, for instance, like any university templates. If you want to match the structure to better adhere to those templates, you can move around any of the sections on your poster and change the content that's within them. So here you'll see as I hover over the poster, this gives me options to highlight over each section. So I can highlight over an entire section. You'll see it says section. I can hover over just that header, hover over just the image blocks, for instance, and that's going to allow me to shift around these sections. So if I wanted to better match this poster, let's say this is my university branded template, I'm trying to match this exactly. What we can do here is we need to move our conclusion and acknowledgements over to that right-hand side. So I'm going to hover over this entire section, click on it, and I'm simply just going to drag it over to the right here, insert that to the right of my results section, and then I can adjust that spacing as needed. I'm going to do the same for this acknowledgement section, insert that. You'll see that blue line appear. I can insert it underneath the entire poster or just under that conclusion section, which is what I want to do in this case. So it's very intuitive to kind of move these sections around. They make it really easy to work with. And then also if we need to edit the content within sections, I can go ahead and click on this image, delete that, and then shift this over to be even. If I wanted to insert some additional content, like maybe I want to insert some text to my introduction section, I'll simply click on that text, drag it into the intro, and now we've edited that introduction section. If we want to insert an entire section, so maybe we need to go in and add that references section to the right-hand side, I can go into our insert content, grab an entire section, and insert that between my acknowledgements and conclusion. We'll then simply add in, a text box to that box, go into my header, and add in a references label. So now we've kind of worked with the layout of the poster, added the sections, resized as we need to, and it's fully ready to go to insert content. And so depending on your branding guidelines, I'll just give you an example. If you need to add your university logo into the poster, you can upload any image that you have within BioRender or any image directly from your computer. So here is your university logo here. I've inserted that here. I'm also going to give it a white fill so that we can better see that logo. And then now that logo is on our poster. And what we can actually do is start to match some of these colors. So for the results section, if I wanted, let's say the title and results block to better adhere to your darker Cornell color here, I'll hover over this header section, come to my fill color, choose color picker, and I'm going to hover over that darker Weill Cornell Medicine. And then I can do the same in my title block as well. So I can use that color picker. I'll hover over the results section this time. And then now that kind of better adheres a little bit to your university colors. And then now that we've done all of our formatting and layout, I can quickly show you how we can start inserting some content. So just as though you have drafted up this text in a poster, either in PowerPoint or another application, or you've drafted this text in like Microsoft Word or something like that, we can come over to that drafted text. I'm simply going to copy it over. So we'll just take the title block in this case. And just as you would insert from another poster, you can just insert that into your poster. So text is very easy to transfer over depending on where you've drafted that up, or if you want to draft it within the poster itself. Images are where we have a little bit more complexity to work with. So we'll start with a results section image. I'll touch on this question in the chat first. Are the hex code colors you pick with the color picker remembered within the color options to avoid having to use the color picker every time? So once I pick a color using the color picker, that hex code is visible here to the left under our toolbar here. So if maybe I wanted to, instead of having to use the color picker every time, I could simply copy that hex code and then paste it into any section that I'm going to use that color in. And then, is there a BioRender template for Cornell, or do you have a template that you can share? So we don't have one currently within BioRender for Cornell. That is an option. And so I think that'll just have to be discussed with your branding team. And so Laura and your Cornell admin can work together on that and see if we can create a custom BioRender template for your institution, because that is something that we offer, but it just depends on your branding guidelines and if that's a possibility to make it available within BioRender. Do we get a license to BioRender through Cornell? Yes, you do. So what I will do is I'm just going to come to our example poster here and bring us back into the presentation. And I'm just going to copy. Oh, perfect. Laura's on it. So Laura has pasted the access link into the chat. And if you follow that link, you'll be able to access Cornell's BioRender license and be able to access BioRender Premium through that. So thanks, Laura, for pasting that in. And then just to finish up on the images and how to insert image content into your poster. So under an image block, in the results section, we have a few that were already populated for us. Or if you need to ever insert an image block, you can do that over here under content. So if I wanted to, I could take, oh, that's not what I wanted to do. I could take out this image here. And then maybe if I wanted to insert an image, just as an example, I can do that here over on under the content block. And then once we're ready to insert an image, you'll just simply click on the center of that image. You have the option of uploading, similar to what I showed you with your university logo. The other option is you can actually bring in any BioRender images that you've created directly into your poster. So in this case, we have a kind of mechanistic figure that was created for this poster that was created within our BioRender gallery. So it's loading a bit. Let's see. I'll bring us back and try again. Otherwise, we'll just give it a quick refresh. Let's see. If you ever encounter like some loading, just give it a quick refresh. Sometimes that's all it needs, is just a little bit of a kickstart. But I'll bring us into our images, bring us into this membrane structures diagram, hopefully. Can try another one too. Can we upload our own figures? Yes, absolutely. So here under our BioRender gallery, that's where you can bring in your BioRender specific images. Once we toggle over here to uploads, so I have like a bunch of graphs and things in here. If you have data or like assay images, anything like that that you want to bring into your poster, you can easily do that as well. So if I were to maybe bring in one of these charts, I could do that. And insert that graph onto my poster if I wanted that to have more of its own kind of, yeah, there we go, landscape You can make that a bit bigger. We can even resize this to better fit that once we've inserted that image. So you can definitely upload your own images. And then we'll see if I can pull in one of these BioRender images as an example. I can try this antibody sensitivity. Perfect. Okay, so now that we pulled this in, I want to show you a couple of cool functionalities with the BioRender images. So once we pulled this in, you have the option to resize this. So if I wanted this to fit with a little bit of margin and padding on either side, I can simply resize that image. And now it's a little bit more centered rather than taking up that full space. Also, if you want to make edits, like BioRender edits to these images, you can simply click on this pencil here. It's going to bring up a temporary editor that's similar to the normal BioRender that you're used to working with. And you can actually make any edits directly to this image, but it's only going to edit the image within your poster. It's not going to edit the original image. So you can make any poster related edits without it affecting the original version that you created. So if I wanted to change any of these colors, for instance, I could change this color here. Maybe I want to use the color picker and match this green here. I can do that. And then change out that color as well to match that green color, and then instead dye this one that orange color. So I can make some small edits. Those changes will be made to the one on my poster, but they won't be made to the original in your gallery. And that's mainly just to save you time. If you need to make some minor edits, you don't have to go back to your gallery, edit that image, come back into the poster builder. It's just to simplify that workflow a bit. And so those are some of the cool ways you can work with your BioRender images and any images that you upload from your computer. And to lastly, just touch on a couple of export and citation related things. So to go ahead and export your poster, it's very similar to how you would export a normal file within BioRender. You can choose from a PDF, a PNG, or a JPEG image. You can also set those dimensions. So if at the end you get to the end of your poster, you haven't set those dimensions yet, you can still do that here. You get this little message here that says, hey, this might distort the size and positioning. So I suggest setting the dimensions here under poster settings so that if you did change those dimensions and you needed to edit the sizing of any of your sections, for example, you still have the editing ability to do that versus doing it when you go to export. So that's a suggestion, but you can still do it when you go to export if you would like to. And then you can change the resolution. So we have 72, 150, and 300 DPI. The higher you go, the better image clarity you will have. So for those higher image heavy posters, the higher like 150 and 300 might be more suitable for the clarity in those images, but it's totally up to you and the space that you have to store that poster when you go to export it. And then for citation, we do have at the bottom of any of the posters you create, this little tagline that says created with BioRender Poster Builder. Beyond that, all you have to do is cite any images that you create in an image caption, for instance. So if we insert a caption to any of our images, you can, oh, it's not going to work with me. You can easily create a caption and cite your BioRender images that way, but your poster has already been cited, so no worries on that end. But yeah, that wraps up kind of the main features of the poster builder that I had to share with you today. So I am super happy to take any other questions that you have. But I just want to say thanks again so much for having us today. I hope this kind of encouraged you to try out the poster builder tool, get over that kind of activation energy of transitioning your posters into BioRender. And I'll stick around for a few minutes if you have more questions. And I really appreciate you all attending. And talking to me today about scientific posters. You're a really fun group.
Thanks so much, Annalie and Laura. We have a question from Michaela. Let me take you off the mic.
Awesome.
You should be able to speak, Michaela.
Thanks. Great presentation. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely.
I was trying to follow you step by step, and when I was create a new poster, I saw that several universities have provided templates for the
Yes.
colors. How can we do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's something that's available to your university since your university has a license. So Laura who's on the call with us today. She's your customer success manager here at BioRender. And so in talking to Vanessa a little bit before the call, so you have a branding team at your university, and they'll be able to provide some insights on whether we can provide you a poster in BioRender. And if we're able to do that, Laura and your admins will work together to get a properly branded poster made available if that's a possibility. And so they'll work together on that and see if we can bring that to you. But it's something that we would love to do if we're able to. So we'll start working on that.
Actually, Annalie, we have Nancy Rader from the branding team. She just raised her hand. Nancy, did you want to comment on that?
Hi, yes, this is Nancy Rader. I'm the Assistant Director for Branding for Weill Cornell Medicine, and my team will reach out to get access to BioRender and to create a template
Awesome.
for the community to
That's
use.
great. Sarah Ben Mamar in the library, I think she has the contact point for BioRender.
Oh, thank you. Could you repeat that name, please?
Sarah Ben Mamar, her seaweed is
Oh, okay. I'll find her.
Yeah,
Thank
I was
you.
going to say, Nancy, I can send a follow-up email and connect all of you together so that
Yeah.
you can start discussions about potentially getting some templates into BioRender for everyone.
Okay, wonderful.
great. Thank you very much, Alisa.
You're welcome.
No problem. Actually, Annalie, I had a question. So I know that you were going through the poster creation part of BioRender, but those that first image that you have on the screen, the scientific figure creator, that's also part of the license, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's if we go back to just our regular gallery and we create just a simple illustration, that'll bring you into the kind of normal Illustrator where you can create just plain figures for any of your use cases. And that's, yeah, definitely available on your license.
Perfect. I just wanted to clarify what was included in the license. So it's not just the poster creation, it's also the scientific figures. Perfect. Thank you.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you. That's a really good question. Yeah, you have access to both. So when you're on your home page here and you go to create a new file, you have the option to do either.
Are there any other questions that Annalie or Laura could help you with today with BioRender? And again, we will have a follow-up email for anybody who did arrive a little late to the session. Oh, Michaela, I'm going to unmute you. But while I'm unmuting Michaela, we will have a follow-up email with some information about BioRender, how to request a license, as well as a recording of this session. So if you were a little late, don't worry, we'll have the whole recording available for you to review. Michaela, go ahead.
No, I just want to say they created several figures for teaching, and it works really well.
Oh, good. That's
And
awesome
I
to
love
hear.
I love that you can create like clone a figure and make small changes. So you can have a series of figures that tell us.
Yeah.
It's really it works really nicely.
I'm super happy to hear that. Yeah, what Michaela is referring to is that here in your gallery, you can make copies and clone figures. And so if you did want to have multiple versions of a figure, you can easily do that by making a copy in your gallery. But we always love hearing that it's easy to use and that you enjoy using it. So thanks for that. Any other questions we can answer for anybody? Awesome. I'll pull my camera back on. Now that we've finished up.
Well, I don't see any questions, but I do see some thank yous from some of our participants. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. It's super helpful. I hope that anybody in the chat or in the participation box who hasn't used BioRender yet, you know, you're inspired to perhaps take a look at it and see how it could be helpful, not only to your poster creation, but maybe also just to create scientific figures as well. It's a really helpful tool. So again, I'll be sending a follow-up email with some information about BioRender and how you can request a license or some support guides to kind of help you navigate the tool. And if you have any questions after the session, you know, just feel free to reply to the email. I can hand it off to Annalie or Laura or anybody else at Weill Cornell who may be able to answer your questions. So thank you guys so much. And to Annalie and Laura, I really appreciate you taking the time today to teach us about BioRender.
Thank you so much for all your organization, Nessa. It's been such a pleasure getting this sorted with you.
No problem. Have a great day, everyone. I hope you have a happy Halloween as well. Have a good one.
Bye, everyone. Bye.